Welcome on board the Jumbo Express here at ZSL Whipsnade Zoo. My name is Ted, I'm a presenter here at the zoo, and I'll be telling you all about the animals that we'll see on our journey. But before we see any animals, a super fun safety announcement. If I can ask that everybody please remain seated at all times, and please keep your hands inside of the carriage. It's also very, very important that if you see anybody from the train, that you give them a big, big wave to let them know what a friendly bunch of train riders we are. Coming up first of all, in a couple of moments on the left-hand side of the train, you'll get a nice good look at the Hullabaloo Children's Farm. This is a great place to bring the kids to come and get up close and personal to our farm animals. Outside right now, we've got some of our goats that are down on the left-hand side, and they're joined by a couple of llamas and alpacas. Llamas and alpacas both come from South America, and they're kept by humans for their wool and for their milk. And one of our wallabies is just hopping past the train on the left-hand side. We'll be seeing a few more of them during the train, I think. When you are down at the farm, if anything comes up to the fences to say hello, feel free to reach out and give them a friendly stroke. And on the left-hand side, we've got our Darwin's rhea. They are a flightless bird related to the ostrich and the emu. They come from South America, and they were first discovered in the 1830s on that continent by Charles Darwin during his trip there that gave him all those crazy ideas he had. As we head over this road, we're heading into our train yard. This is where all of our trains are looked after and maintained. This is also where our trains go to bed every single night. The engine that's currently pulling us along is called Superior. Superior is one of our heaviest steam engines at 18.5 tons. That's about as heavy as 4 of our female Asian elephants. On the left-hand side, you'll see a great big pile of coal and some buckets of coal as well. All of our trains are powered entirely by coal. There's no hidden petrol engines, there's no sneaky electric motors, there's no naughty nuclear nonsense going on here. It's all 100% authentic, old-fashioned coal powering our trains. We get through 1 to 2 of those buckets of coal every single journey. All that work feeding the coal into the train, as well as making sure that we stay on track, is done by the driver and the fireman. They're both up at the front of the train, working very, very hard indeed. To let them know how much we appreciate all of their hard work, let's all give them a big wave. On the left-hand side, just behind us, we've got our train yard. This is where they do all of their very important work to make sure our trains are nice and fixed and ready to go each day. Every morning it takes them 3 hours to get a steam engine up and ready for the day. And that's not because they're slow and lazy, that's because you've got to get the fire nice and warm. It takes a very long time until it's at the right temperature and it's ready to go out into the zoo. Last year our trains covered 7,500 miles around these tracks. That's about the distance from London to New York City and back again. The engine that's currently pulling us along Superior is 96 years old. And as we head around this corner, keep your eyes peeled on both sides of the train for our wallabies. There's one on the left-hand side along that piece of train tracks. Our wallabies are free roaming animals, as you probably already worked out. They can go wherever they like all around the zoo. When we first opened in 1931, we had 9 wallabies that lived in an enclosure. Since then they've escaped and there are now 700 of them living all around the zoo. Goodness knows what they've been doing in the meantime. The best place to look out for them is where it's shady, so on a day like today, you're especially likely to see them hiding underneath a tree. All of our wallabies are Bennett's wallabies, which means they're the species that comes from Tasmania. When a baby wallaby is born, it's about the size of a baked bean, and it has to make its own way into its mum's pouch. Very stressful first day, but then the next 6 months are pretty easy, because all it does is it sits there and it grows. It doesn't do anything apart from growing inside that pouch. And then after 6 months, it's about half the size of mum, and she's really starting to get weighed down, especially because sometimes she can have up to 3 in one go. And then in April and May, after those 6 months, they'll start to climb out and take their first few hops in the big wide world. Even by now in August, you'll still see them from time to time jumping into the pouch when they get a bit scared by something. And on the right hand side, an animal that's much bigger than a baby Joey, we have got Emmett. Emmett is an Asian elephant. He is 25 years old and he is the bull, and that makes him the heaviest animal here at the zoo. He's currently using his very impressive trunk to throw sand on his body. There is a reason he's doing that on a day like today. That sand keeps him cool and it acts like a sunscreen. The elephant's trunk has 100,000 muscles. That's more than the entire human body. It's strong enough to pull down a tree, but also slight enough to pick a single blade of grass out of the ground. Emmett has got big long tusks coming out of his mouth. In Asian elephants, it's only the males that have tusks, so that's the easiest and most PC way to work out whether or not he's a boy. Asian elephants are smaller than their African cousins, which makes them the second largest animal on land. The way to spot an African versus an Asian elephant is that African elephants are larger, they've got larger ears, and in African elephants, both males and females that have tusks. So if you can see an elephant that's got tusks, but something else leads you to believe that it's a female, then that means it's an African elephant. And over on the right hand side, we've got more of our herd. What our matriarch there is doing is she's got a very clever tactic to get the shade. She's lying right underneath that shade created by her fellow elephants. Now you did hear that right, she is the matriarch. Being the matriarch is a very important job because there's always just one female who's in charge of an elephant herd, just like my house at home. Being in charge of a herd is a very tricky job. You've got to make sure everyone goes to bed at the right time. You've got to make sure they're all eating the right food. You've got to make sure they all walk in the right directions, and then you can remember all the right routes to find food. But our matriarch Kaylee is very, very good at it. The little animals on the right hand side that are inside the elephant enclosure are called Mara. You might have seen them throughout your day at the zoo, as like the wallabies, these guys are also free roamers. They're a type of rodent that comes from South America, and they are wild relatives of the guinea pig. If you do see these, they look like very big guinea pigs crossed with a small deer, crossed with a rabbit. If you do see them in the central fields of the zoo, it's very important not to chase them, as they've got a very special defense mechanism. They can weave behind them for up to 2 liters. On the left hand side, there's a few of our paired David deer that are hanging out in the shade. I'll tell you a bit more about them when we see some more later on. But on the right hand side, we've got our Asian rhinos. These rhinos that come from India and Nepal have got the thickest skin of any animal here at the zoo. The reason why Asian rhinos need to be thick-skinned is not to be immune from insults, it's to be immune from insects. As out in the wild where they live, there are quite a number of biting bugs that might carry diseases. So to keep themselves safe, the Asian rhino skin is 4 centimeters thick, which stops the bites getting through in the first place. On the right hand side, the Asian rhino that's in that paddock there is Hugo. He is the male and father to our young calf, who's currently on the other side of that bridge. The Asian rhinos have got 4 different fields that they can be moved between, each of them about the size of the ones you can see on the right hand side. They've got plenty of space, and today it's Hugo who's in the one by the train. They've got that big pool on the right hand side in the middle of their enclosure. It's full of muddy water, which, like the elephants with their sand, keeps them cool and acts like a sunscreen. Our Asian rhinos love nothing more than wallowing about in muddy water. On the left hand side, we've got the rest of the herd of paired David deer. These deer come from Central Asia, and most of them live in a national park in China. Before I tell you more about them, everybody wave to these cars on the left hand side as we are holding up their journey. So as a way of apology, let's be as friendly as we can. And then over to the left hand side, back to these deer. As I said, they do live in China. Our males have currently got very large antlers right now, because deer do have to regrow their antlers every single year. That's the difference between a deer and an antelope. Deer do have to regrow their antlers each year, whereas antelope can keep their antlers for their entire lives. Now that our males antlers are fully grown, it means it's time for the rutting season. The rutting season means that our males will fight each other. They will charge at each other with their antlers and try and knock each other down. Whoever gets knocked down first is the loser, and the winner gets to have as many girlfriends as he wants. And we're currently in our seagull paddock. It's not really supposed to be our seagull paddock, but lots of the animals have moved over to the water and the shade, so this space is mainly seagulls. Normally they're down by the lake, but on a day like today, they've decided to fly up here and look for food. And over in the distance on the left-hand side, we've got two different species of deer. So the deer with the white undersides are fallow deer, and the deer that are a little bit larger and a slightly darker shade of brown on the left-hand side are swamp deer. Swamp deer come from India, and they're the largest species of deer that we have here at Whipsnade. And then the fallow deer come from Mediterranean Europe, although they also can be found right here in the UK. They were first brought to our forest 1,000 years ago by the Normans, and since then they've settled rather well in Britain. All the deer that live in our forest absolutely love it here because in the UK we don't have any big predators, so there's no bears, there's no wolves, and there are no lynxes. That is really great news for deer. It means they've been able to breed in the UK in very high numbers. Over to the left-hand side, you've got the rest of the deer park. We've got our normally quite well-populated lake on a day like today. There's some more swamp deer just behind us on the left-hand side as well. Normally you'll see lots of deer in the lake on a day like today. And over in the distance on the left-hand side, we've got a group of male fallow deer. And if you look also to the left-hand side, in amongst those fences, you can see a little bird perched on those fences. That is a red kite. They're not residents of the zoo, they are a native bird that lives here in the Chilterns. And speaking of native birds, we've got a flock of pigeons. Normally there's deer to talk about on this part of the train, but I'm having to resort to the pigeons. On the right hand side, if you look underneath those trees, you can see a couple of our Przewalski horses. There's one lying down in the sun as well. Now these horses on the right hand side might look like ordinary horses, but they're actually very special animals because the Przewalski horses are the only horses in the whole world that are completely wild. So that species has never been domesticated by humans at all, and all other species of horses have, or have at least been partially domesticated by humans. Behind us on the left-hand side, there's a car that's driving incredibly quickly. The speed limit in the deer park is 5 miles an hour, so I'm sure that they're going to be getting in a little bit of trouble soon. But following behind them, a car that is driving at an appropriate speed, so let's all give them a wave to let them know they're driving at just the right speed. Although I'm not certain that it's safe to put your kids on top of the car like that. Never mind. Over to the right-hand side, back to these horses. The Przewalski horses are actually endangered. In 1950, there were only 12 Przewalski horses living out in the wild. They were all taken into captivity and put into a breeding program. Thanks to the efforts of zoos all over Europe, they're now being bred and re-released back out into the wild. The number of wild Przewalski horses is now about 300, and it's ever rising. And some of those 300 used to live right here at Whipsnade, and they're now enjoying life out in the wilds of Mongolia. On the right-hand side, we've got the enclosure for our sloth bears. The sloth bears may or may not be outside right now, but if you can see a black bear moving about in there, then that is one of our sloth bears. We never force them to be inside or outside. It tends to be a 50-50 chance as to whether they will be in or out. If you can't see them right now, then I do recommend going down to see these Indian and Sri Lankan bears before the end of your day. Whether they are inside or outside, you'll still be able to get a good look at them because there are viewing stations whether they're inside or outside. The reason why you should go and see them, not only just because they're really great animals, but we are the only zoo in the UK that have sloth bears. And the next nearest zoo to here is Russia, so unless you're planning to go to Moscow anytime soon, then I do recommend heading to see our sloth bears before the end of your day. They're not too far from the train station. If you head over past the tigers, they're about 1 minute to walk from where this train will end. Coming up on the right hand side, we've got our hog deer breeding field. This field is where our short little hog deer have had their young and therefore like to hide away in the long grasses. If you look over to the right hand side, right in the corner of that enclosure, you can see a couple of those small hog deer running around. Don't worry if you can't spot them though, just imagine a really small deer. We're just heading under the tunnel now. Please stay sat down and keep your hands inside of the carriage. It might get a bit dark and a bit smoky in the front carriages, but when we get to the other side, we'll be seeing some of our African birds. right hand side, our 3 pelicans are looking to get a bit of fish. I hope those people aren't feeding them. They can open their mouths very, very wide, and even the pouches under their beak. Pelicans can fit 40 litres of water or 6 very large fish. We also got some native birds that live here in our lake, including our ducks and our seagulls. So they're on the right hand side, and they're not really supposed to be here, but we've got plenty of food to go around, so we don't mind. We've got some antelope over to the left hand side in that field. And then on the right hand side, these birds with the long red legs and the long red beaks are storks. They come from Africa, and they're the animals from German fairy tales that are thought to bring you babies. Scientists now doubt whether that is the case. And on the left hand side, the 2 very large birds you can see over by those people along the fence line are ostriches. We've got 1 male and 1 female. They're on the left hand side, and the ostrich is the largest and the fastest bird in the world. They're again very close to the train. Head around past the sea lions over towards near the dinosaurs if you'd like to see them before you go home. And speaking of the dinosaurs, if you've not been there yet, make sure you get down to that exhibit before 5 p.m. as that exhibit closes at 5, 1 hour before the zoo itself closes at 6. Checking your planners and come to any of the great live events that are happening throughout the rest of the day at the zoo. Thanks very much for riding on board the Jumbo Express today. My name is Ted. If you've got any questions, feel free to come and ask me on the platform as you're leaving. But please stay sat down until the train has come to a complete stop. Please take all of your rubbish with you and put it in the bins along the platform. Do mind the gap between the train and the platform edge as you get out. Have a lovely rest of your day here at Whipsnade Zoo, and thanks again for riding on board.
Started at 1:30. Goes on half an hour. You might just see them flying around.
Methods such as pole and line rather than huge fishing nets that lots of marine life can't get caught up in. And this will help our pelicans as well as lots of other. So we do want to talk there. Once again, my name's Katie. If you've got any questions at all, don't be afraid to ask. Do carry on watching our pelicans, having a good old play with their fish. Also, if you want to ask us anything at all about the other birds in the lake, you're more than welcome to. Our last talk of the day now is with our crocodiles at 4:30, which is taking place in the butterfly house, and we do have 3 baby crocodiles as well, so do go along to see them. And enjoy the rest of your day here at the lovely Whipsnade Zoo. Just one reminder, if you haven't seen our dinosaurs yet,
Daddy, where's the binoculars?
I was talking to you about.
Daddy, where's my binoculars?
Something you can look out for is a certain kind of logo called the MSC logo. It's a fish with a tick. I've got some, in my bag over here, I've got some good fish guides. It's got the little logo in there if you do want one. They're absolutely free if you want to pick one up. And it tells you what fish is really good to eat at the moment.
What's that noise? Hey, come on, let's go. Stop video it. Stop. Can you stop video it? Don't that bite me.
What can you see?
I can see origins.
Whoa, this is the deer.
Look, they go hunting. Stop, Daddy. Daddy, drive.
Oh my god, one of them just walked across. We have to wait, we can't go try.
He will die. Can you drive?
It's too hot. They don't know.
No, and this is the buck. It's a shoot.
Can you see them? Look. What you looking at?
At the zebra.
At the zebra.